Today's scripture reading will be out of John 10:10. John 10:10. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly.
One of the reasons that we get together is, of course, to worship and also to encourage each other. And I want to say how encouraging it is to look out and see everybody here. I know lots of things are going on, but it was important that you took the time and spend some time with other Christians. And don't underestimate the fact that you were here. It really made a difference to look across the room and see your smiling face. You don't have to smile, but you can just present your face. It'd be great. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I was trying to think of some examples to start this off with, and one of the best ones I could come up with that I personally have experience with is, have you been driving your car and just something feels off about it, and you even get, it just seems not working very well, and you get out on the highway, and then you think, oh yeah, the emergency brake. Have you done that before? Have you ever put on, some of you guys, if you put on your jacket and it's like, this is not comfortable at all, my coat, something's off about it, and then discover the hanger still there? I haven't done that, but I've done the thing where you say, this collar is very stiff and not comfortable, and then you pull out that cardboard thing. I'm trying to think of some other examples, but I bet you can think of some where life just seems kind of off. It's like, okay, things are moving along pretty well, but it's not going the way that it should be. And I think, the reason I bring this up is I think it's important to talk about the possibility that even as Christians, this can be true. We've made the decision to follow the author of life, and yet life isn't exactly what we were hoping it would be. It's kind of just okay. Something's kind of off, and it's not always easy to put your finger on it, what's not quite right. I'm going to present a few possibilities, and I guess I'm using myself as kind of a source for these things. I'm just going to make the assumption that maybe it's relevant to you as well. One reason that I think is very common for a lot of us as Christians is we still carry burdens. Even though we've become Christians, it's hard to let go of that guilt, either of things from before we were Christians or even the struggles that we are currently a part of. So we carry guilt, we carry regret, sometimes we carry doubt. But one of the most important things that Jesus offered is a life without burdens. You look at Matthew 11:28, you know this verse very well. It's a key part of Christianity. If you look at Matthew 11:28, it's a good reminder. This was the very thing that he addressed those who are considering following him. In Matthew 11:28, he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." In other words, all of you who are exhausted by life and weighed down by all kinds of stuff, follow me. Life doesn't have to be like that. That's kind of what he's telling them. There's a better way of doing this. And not only does Jesus offer the option of not being loaded down, he's also provided the church. Like a good example is this congregation right here, made up of brothers and sisters who can help with the heavy lifting. Christianity should not be about carrying around a load of things. And one of the heaviest things you can carry is sin. Galatians 6 addresses this, the fact that Christians can help each other get rid of sin. In fact, our class, we've been spending time on talking about this very thing. Galatians 6:1 says, "Brethren, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you too will not be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ." And notice that it's described as a burden. And we carry around anxiety too. I know that's something that's all kind of weighing me down sometimes. It depends. But God has offered to pick that up too. Here's 1 Peter 5, verse 6. These are not just nice thoughts for the day. This is how Christianity works. 1 Peter 5, verse 6. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time. Casting all your anxiety on him. That's the part I want to point out. Casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Notice it doesn't say hand your anxiety over to him. It says casting all your anxiety. You know what I think of is the times when I've been loaded down with so much that when help finally arrives, I throw it at him. I think that's maybe what's being described here. You don't just hand it off to him. You cast your anxiety on him. But for the most part, in our Christianity, we're kind of doing it wrong. We follow Jesus and we still carry baggage. I remember coming across a story that this guy's hitchhiking in the old days when it used to be okay and safe. And he was carrying this big old backpack and he's walking down the road and this guy kind of felt bad for him. He had a pickup truck, so he pulls over. He says, hop in the back, I'll take you where you need to go. So he's driving him along and he looks in the rearview mirror and the guy is in the back of the pickup. He's still got the backpack on. He says, you can take that off and, relax a little bit. He says, no, I appreciate you giving me a ride. I can't expect you to carry the pack as well. And that's the kind of reasoning that we kind of use in our Christianity. And sometimes it's kind of hard to let go, but we need to understand we're not supposed to be doing any heavy lifting. That's not what's going on in Christianity. But part of the problem is we are creatures of habit. And although we have the potential to become something more, we have a tendency to stay the same. Where I work, where I teach, there are no assigned seats. There are no assigned seats in any of the classes. And guess what happens? There is no assigned parking for any of the adults that work there. No staff has any assigned parking. Guess where we park? Every day. Which pew are you sitting in? We tend to do what we did before, and that's fine, but it's kind of shocking how quickly life becomes a matter of doing the same thing every day and being the same person every day. A lot of it can be good, eat food every day and sleep every night. Those are good habits, but there's a lot of what we do is simply because it's what we do, and it's hard to change. I appreciate this analogy. This guy said bad habits are like plants. The longer they're there, the harder they are to pull. And the longer they're there, the more help you're going to need. I've pulled a lot of weeds. I don't ever remember asking for anybody's help to pull a weed, but when there was a tree, it's a collaborative effort. It's important that we examine the habits that are in our lives. Some of them are easy to get rid of. Some of them have been there a while, and it's hard to remove them. The very nature of being a Christian is all about changing. Here's Romans 12:2. It's what we do as Christians. It's what defines us. Do not be conformed to this world. This is Romans 12:2. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I keep coming back to this again and again, I guess, because I see it in myself, this lack of willingness to change sometimes. I should not be the same person I was yesterday. And it's hard to do that many times because we don't want to change. We've become hardened, especially by bad choices that can do that to us. Here's Hebrews 3:13. One of the side effects of sin, very, very important to know about, is your life kind of solidifies. Your perception gets petrified. Here's Hebrews 3:13. But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today, so that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. You see that? That's one of the side effects of sin, is being hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. So sin hardens our lives, which means it gets locked into place and we remain the same person, unchangeable. Deep down, we all know that there's more to Christianity than what we're doing. We know that guilt and doubt and sin need to go, and we know that we need to make some changes. But deep down, this has been on my mind a lot recently because I think I've been guilty of this. I think we're kind of suspicious. I think there's a sneaking suspicion that if we get serious about obeying God, that we're going to lose too much. I think that's why people don't really let go and take Christianity seriously. We're afraid to completely surrender. Our culture has taught us to be suspicious, especially when you hear the word free. What free means, you know what it means today. If somebody offers you something free, there's strings attached. There's some loophole that's going to get you later. And ultimately, it's all to benefit them, not you. They don't truly care about you. And so we keep our Christianity set to low, just enough to have maybe a little peace or at least some semblance of it, but not so much that it requires anything of us like changing. It's almost as if we suspect God, that his plan is maybe for passionless do-gooders, or he doesn't want us to be happy. I don't know exactly what's going on in the back of our minds, but I think that's what's going on. And one thing you'll discover in your daily Bible reading, you'll discover a new and improved perspective of who God really is. He is not the God most people think. God can't wait to bless you. Here's Isaiah 65, verse 1. There's just one passage that proves this. God is so eager to bless you. Here's Isaiah 65, verse 1. And notice the image that's used here, describing his eagerness to make your life better. Isaiah 65:1 says, I permitted myself to be sought by those who did not ask for me. I permitted myself to be found by those who did not seek me. I said, here am I, to a nation which did not call on my name. I have spread out my hands all day long to a rebellious people who walk in the way which is not good, following their own thoughts. That image comes to me a lot in my mind of him saying, I have spread out my hands all day long. And notice the reason that the people don't reach back is they're following their own thoughts. It's a very effective description of our situation. I think many people at least appear to think that Christianity is just about keeping things under control. Don't get in trouble, kind of lay low until the clouds open, and that's really what Christianity is all about. But Jesus was very adamant when he came that he wasn't here to just give us life. He said, I'm not here to give you life. Everybody's got that for a while. Here's John 10, verse 10. Omar read this for us earlier. Christianity is a lot bigger than life. So I'm not here to give you life. Here's what he says in John 10:10. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. It's kind of hard to really wake up and keep all this in mind. The more we settle into our lives, we cling to our baggage. It's kind of hard to let go, like I say, and we cling to our habits. We're the same people as we were yesterday, and we lose our ability to measure reality. God has made it clear that if we reject him, he will help us be blind. He's very clear about this. In fact, 2 Thessalonians 2, it's referred to as the strong delusion, that if we reject the truth, you say, I will let you have that inability to see things as they are. Here's Isaiah 44:18. Here's another way of putting it. Isaiah 44, verse 18. And what this is describing is an affliction in which you are not seeing things the way they truly are. You're seeing things inaccurately. Isaiah 44:18, they do not know, nor do they understand, for he has smeared over their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so that they cannot comprehend. It's very possible for you and I to not have a grasp of the situation. Even as Christians, we can end up living a life weighed down by burdens, tangled up in our habits, kind of stuck in who we are, still doubting God's plan for us and failing to grasp the situation. Well, the reason I bring this all up this morning is I was thinking about something that I read, and I thought I'd share it with you, some of the details. And I think it captures all the things that I've been talking about. I read about this, and I saw me, and I saw you, and I just saw some of us in our Christianity. There's a man named Onoda, was his name. World War II, he's born during that time. He's born in Japan. He was 20 years old, and like a lot of people who lived in Japan during that time, he joined the army, and he trained, and he went to an island in December of 1944. That was his assignment. They told him when they put him on the island, do not surrender, no matter what. This is in the Philippines. And so he joined some other soldiers there. 2 months later, the Allied forces conquered the island. And Onoda and the other soldiers, they scattered into groups of about 3 or 4, and they went deep into the jungle. Most of those groups didn't survive, but Onoda and 3 other guys with him survived. And they continued the mission, and they would hide in the jungle. Once in a while, they'd come out and attack whatever they could reach. And it was all about surviving and waiting. It was a very hard life. They lived on bananas and coconuts and whatever they could find. 7 months later, they were walking through the jungle and they found a leaflet, a piece of paper that had been dropped, and it said that the war had ended 2 months ago. And it said, "Come down from the mountains." And the 4 of them sat down and they discussed it, and they said, "It's obviously a trick." So they stayed. About 2 months later, B-17, a pretty big plane, flew over the jungle and dropped more leaflets, and it was a message from a Japanese general, and it said, "Surrender." And they looked this over, these 4 guys, Onoda and his friends. They said, "This has got to be another trick." Later, more leaflets were sent, including newspaper clippings and photos from Japan and letters from their own families. And they, again, met these 4 guys and said, "They're getting clever, but this is obviously deception." Japan sent delegates into the jungle with loudspeakers. They'd wander through the underbrush, all the jungle area with these loudspeakers, begging them to surrender. And they knew for sure this has got to be some kind of trick. And years passed, and these 4 soldiers continued their mission. They did notice every once in a while, they'd look out and they'd see most people dressed in civilian clothing, but they knew that it was still part of this elaborate deception. Every once in a while, someone from Japan would come and try to convince them and yell into the jungle to try to convince them to come home, but they knew it was all a trick, and more time passed. Finally, one day, one of the soldiers decided to surrender, and he snuck away. He didn't tell the other 3. It took him a long time, but he was able to reach civilization and return to outside life. Onoda and the 2 other guys that remained thought he'd been captured, and so they went deeper into hiding. More time went by. There's 3 of them left. One of those guys died. They're down to 2. More time went by. Onoda and his friend continued the mission. They would gather intelligence, occasionally attack certain areas. More time passed. And then finally, during one of these skirmishes with the authorities, Onoda's friend was killed, and he was all by himself. Well, the authorities had ended the life of Onoda's friend, and they were surprised to even find this guy because he had been thought to be long dead. And so they got to thinking, I wonder if this other guy, this other soldier is still out there, Onoda. So the Japanese heard about it. They sent a search party, but by then Onoda was too good at hiding in the jungle, and he went deeper and hid very well, and he continued his mission alone, and more time went by. One year, a college student wanted to travel the world, and he had an interesting list of things to do. This is what he wanted to accomplish on his trip: find a panda, find the abominable snowman, and find Onoda. And he went to the island and he found him. He went out there where thousands of others had been trying to find this guy. He found where he was living and waited for him, I guess, and met up with him, and he tried to convince him to come home, and he refused. He said, "I'm not doing this. This is a trick." But the student went home and reported it, and they found a Japanese major who had retired a long time ago. He's working in a bookstore. So can you go talk to this guy? So he went to the island, this ex-Japanese major, and he found Onoda because of where the college student had found him. And he told him, he says, "Japan lost the war a long time ago. Give up. Surrender." Finally, Onoda believed. And the war had been over for 27 years. This is what Onoda said when describing how he felt when he realized the truth. He said, "Suddenly everything went black. A storm raged inside me. I felt like a fool for having been so tense and cautious on the way here. Worse than that, what had I been doing for all these years?" Gradually, the storm subsided, and for the first time, I really understood this was the end. I pulled back the bolt on my rifle and unloaded my bullets. I eased off the pack that I always carried with me and laid the gun on top of it. Would I really have no more use for this rifle that I'd polished and cared for like a baby all these years? So on March 10th, 1975, at the age of 52, in full uniform, still immaculate, he walked out of the jungle. I am happy to tell you that his life got better after that. He got 30 years of back pay. He got married, moved to Brazil, bought a ranch, wrote an autobiography. In 1984, he returned to Japan, started a school for children, and taught them how to survive in the jungle, all the things that he learned. 1996, he went back to the island and donated thousands of dollars to the local schools. He had a better life. I read all this, and I thought, I think sometimes we can be like that. We get caught up in a certain way of life, and we think, oh, well, this is life. This is it. And you just keep going. People say there's something better, but we're kind of suspicious. You know, some guy like me gets up and says, no, there's more. Say, yeah, but, you know, you're going to lose stuff. It's a trick. And you just keep going. We think we know what's going on, but we're way off. We worry about things, and we struggle with sins on our own, and we have guilt, and we have doubt, and we have our own personal jungle. But all we have to do is walk out. One big difference between us and Onoda is he had to deal with the fact that his side lost. All his effort was for nothing. If you're a Christian, you chose the winning side. Romans 8:37 tells us that we overwhelmingly conquered. Jesus died for you, not so you can barely survive in a jungle. John 10:10, he says, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I know none of us are where we need to be, but we need to remember the war is over. The battle was won at the cross. If you're not a Christian, it's very much like scraping by in the jungle. And the years will go by, still trying to make that decision of walking out. But I want to reassure you, or just at least assure you, that you're missing out on a better life. But it's also very important, even if you are a Christian, to realize that a lot of us need to drop the backpack and the gun and change into new clothes and be at peace. I'm not here to deceive you. It's not a trick. Maybe it would help to think of this as one of those leaflets. And the message for all of us from God is, come on out. There's a better life waiting for you. Pray you'll think about this while we stand together and sing.